I'm Gary North, and I'm going to tell you about the Ron Paul curriculum. I assume that you are a student. Your parent has said, watch this video, so you are dutifully watching the video. You may be in the 6th grade. You may be in a much higher grade. You may be in high school. I don't care. I'm going to have the same message for all of you, whatever grade you're in, whatever age you're in. I'm going to tell you the same story and motivate you with the same presentation. It's not going to go over your head if you're 12 years old or 11 years old, and it's not going to bore you if you're 13 or 14. First, one of the possibilities, if you stick with this program from 6th grade all the way through, is that you can get into college at age 16. And some of you, even though you don't start young enough, in other words, maybe you start at the freshman year of high school, you can still do it. This may seem hard to believe, but you can. And we have students who have done this using similar techniques from other homeschool programs, because our program, as you'll see, is geared to what are known as CLEP exams. And you can quiz your way into college at a relatively young age. You can not just get into college, you can get in as a junior at age 16. Now, that may seem like a big deal to you now, that it's not possible, but for a good number of you, it will be possible. I'm not saying everybody has to do this. I don't want to give you some grand vision that you're just not ready for. But I'm saying if you do your work and you're reasonably smart and you're not a flake and you do what you say and you commit to the program, you conceivably could get into college at age 16 as a junior. Now, I don't recommend this. I don't think you go off to college, but if you can take distance learning courses at the collegiate level, then I think it's a really good idea. You can graduate from college at age 18. Is this really possible? Yeah, it really is possible. And one of the teachers in this program did this. On his 18th birthday, his birthday present to himself was a bachelor's degree in business from an accredited university. And he paid for most of it himself, and what he didn't pay for, he repaid his parents within a year. So, is this real world? Yes, it is. Of course, if you're real good at taking exams, it's a lot easier. Some people are really not very good at taking exams, and I realize that. But if you have a knack for taking exams, you can be out of college at 18 years old and not be in debt. You can spend no more than $15,000 for college. The whole shebang. Freshman all the way through senior, $15,000. You can do this, in other words, for about $11 a day. Well, you can get a part-time job and do this. So this is real world. This is not make-believe. This can be done, and it has been done. You may want to start a small business at age 16. Get your feet wet. Maybe make a little money. And if you lose some money, at least get an education while you're losing money. But it is possible, and we encourage it. What we would really like to see you do is get at least 2 years of college behind you by the time you're 17 or 18, so that when your friends are graduating from high school, you'll be going into college as a junior. And maybe you'll have a little side business that earns walking around money, and that's nice too. You get some independence. These are all real possibilities. You're going to understand free market economics when you're through with this curriculum. A lot of students don't. A lot of people don't. A whole lot of congressmen don't. You are going to understand the free market system when you're out. And this is going to be an advantage you'll maintain for the rest of your life. You're going to master the skill of writing by age 16. Now, that's assuming you start at the 6th grade and do all the work. Now, if you start at, say, freshman year, you're going to get better. I'm not going to say you're mastering writing, but you'll get better at writing. But if you come into this program at the beginning, at about the 6th grade or even the 7th grade, and you do your weekly writing assignments, you're going to be a good writer by age 16. By the time you get out of high school, you're going to be a first-rate writer. You'll have a real advantage, and this also will stick with you for the rest of your life. You're going to become a skilled public speaker by the age of 16. You'll be able to stand up in front of an audience and persuade people of something you believe in. You may not think you can do this. You can do this. And I think you should do this. There's no reason why you shouldn't be a competent public speaker. Now, this doesn't mean you're going to be a spellbinder. Occasionally, some student does that. That's possible. But you'll be competent. You'll do what most people are afraid to do all their lives. People are afraid to stand up in front of a group and give a talk. When you are through with the Ron Paul curriculum, you will not suffer from that fear any longer. You may have butterflies in your stomach as a kind of way to get competitive, but it will not be paralyzing fear. It will be motivational fear. It will be productive fear. And you're going to have this ability if you will stick with the program through the end of the program. You're going to be able to take a local leadership role by age 21. Now, I don't necessarily mean political leadership. There are lots of ways to take leadership. And I have a course in what I call the ABC course, the Academic Basics course, where I talk about leadership and the kinds of leadership that are possible. You, if you want it, will be able to take some form of local leadership by the time you're 21, and maybe even less. It's not that you won't be competent to take a leadership role at 17 or 18. The problem is if you're dealing with adults, they won't believe it. They'll probably say, no, this kid's too young. He can't do this. So then you do grunt work. Then you show up and you're faithful and you do the basics. You come to the meetings. You don't make trouble. You're helpful. And if you're given an opportunity to work with younger students, you can do that. And adults may not want to do that. They may be willing to put you in a local leadership role if you're going to deal with teenagers. And you probably are going to be able to do this. All of these are advantages, real possibilities with this curriculum. These are the benefits. Take my Academic Basics course, the ABC course. You can get it at this address, type it in, use the caps. You have to use the caps. It's case sensitive. But it'll take you right to the course if you're interested. Now, it covers the following: study techniques, how to get better grades, how to learn faster, how to learn more effectively, how to retain, in terms of your memory, what you've learned. You're going to learn how to write. And if you go through the whole program, you're going to learn how to write really well, better than probably 80% of the public. That's easy to do, probably better than 90% of the public, and some of you may even be able to become professional writers, although that's a long shot. It's tough to do that. But you will have the competence to become a professional writer, even if you can't find somebody to pay you. You're going to learn leadership principles in the course. And I hope you'll take the course just for this section of the course. You're going to learn success principles, and you can apply these in every area of your life, not just business, not just academics, but across the board. Next, you're going to learn goal setting. And goal setting is one of the most important skills a person can ever develop. If you can learn to do this and do it effectively, it can change your life. It will change your life. It will make you far more efficient than you ever believed. You'll be able to achieve far more than you would have imagined. Then there's going to be time management. Once you decide what it is you want to achieve, in other words, what your goals are, then time management is crucially important for budgeting that most scarce of all resources, which is your time. You can't replace time. It's a non-renewable resource. You have got to be very, very careful with it, and you're going to learn these skills in the course. Finally, you're going to learn about digital tools that can make you much more efficient, not simply as a student in school, but for the rest of your life. Now, for all these benefits, there are costs. There are no free lunches. That's the basic rule of free market economics. So you're going to have to pay for the lunches. Maybe your parents pay for the coursework, but you're going to pay in terms of time and effort. I want to talk about a speech I heard in 1959. That was a while back. I was a freshman at Pomona College in California. It was an academically rigorous school. The people in the school were very good students. And in probably the first week, the orientation week, I went to a required meeting, and a lot of the specialists on the campus, professors, were briefly introduced, so we'd know what it was all about. But then there was a speech by one of the men who was part of the administration. At least I think he was. Maybe he was a professor, but it's been a long time. And I remember what he said in that speech. It stuck with me. I never forgot it. He said this: your parents, or somebody, maybe not parents, maybe he didn't say plural, but he said your parent or parents are sending you to college. And he said somebody in the family is working 40 hours a week at a job to send you here. Now, the reality was, anybody who went to that school, the father probably worked longer than 40 hours a week. It was an expensive school, and it was tough to get into. People were probably the sons and daughters of professionals, so probably it was more than 40 hours a week, but he used the standard week, 40 hours. And here's what he said: if you will commit to work as hard as whoever is bringing home the money to put you through school, if you will commit to 40 hours a week, you will graduate from this college and you will do well. And he was right. There was no question that that was the truth. I believed it then, and I watched friends of mine who stayed at the school, and they did graduate, and whether they worked 40 hours a week, I'm not sure. Now, I transferred out, but I went to a very similar school with very similar academic requirements, and my grades were just about the same as they'd been at Pomona. And it was true. If I was willing to put in 40 real hours a week, the way my father did, then I knew I could get out of that school, graduate from it, get my degree. And it was true, and I did. Now, you've got to answer 3 questions in your life for all projects you ever start, for all goal setting. And that's what I'm going to ask you to do now. I want you to ask yourself these questions, and I think you ought to write down the answers. So let's go through the questions. What do I want to achieve? You can do it for a lifetime. You probably have no idea what you can achieve in a lifetime. I'm almost certain you don't have the knowledge of what you can achieve, because you can achieve a lot more than you think right now. You're going to achieve way more if you follow these basic rules. But I'm talking about, what do you want to achieve over the next, say, year? At the end of the academic year of the Ron Paul curriculum, what do you want to achieve? What do you want to know? What success do you want to have? Can you write it down? Do write it down. Get some sense of what you would like to do within 1 year. And then I would recommend that you make an assessment of what you want to achieve by the time you graduate from the program. When you're ready to go to college or go into business or do whatever it is you want to do, and you have your high school degree behind you, and of course it won't be a degree, it will simply be the fact that you took the courses, you're eligible for college, you've achieved some kind of success. What do you want to achieve at the end of the 4-year or 5-year period, whatever it is, when you finally get out of the Ron Paul curriculum? What do you want to achieve? Write that down too. It's a relatively short-term goal and then a longer-term goal. And then, how soon do I want to achieve it? Set your goals in terms of a time frame. And you should have multiple goals for multiple time frames. But whenever you select a goal, you want to ask yourself, how soon do I want to achieve it? Now, maybe you've figured out what the third question is. What am I willing to pay? There are no free lunches. Now, the sooner you want to achieve it, the more you're going to have to pay. And maybe you don't have money to pay, but you have time to pay. Your currency is time. You're young, so you have a lot of time. So your currency is time, because you don't have a lot of money. Now, if you get to my age, you're going to have a lot of money, maybe, and not much time. So it shifts. As you get older, it shifts. And the currency of preference moves from money to time as you get older. But you're young. So what are you willing to pay in terms of time? Are you willing to put in the 40 hours a week? If you want to achieve something really great, you may have to put in 45 hours a week. And maybe you don't do that immediately, but maybe in your last 2 years you do. Maybe you get a job, part-time job on the side. So you go through your high school courses. You may take exams, written exams called CLEP exams, and get college credit, and you may have a job. I did this in high school. I worked about 20 hours a week in high school, worked at a record store. You have never probably seen a record store, but in those days, they sold records. There was no downloading of YouTube music or iTunes music back in those days. But I worked about 20 hours a week in my sophomore year of high school and my junior year of high school, and I worked quite a bit, not quite as much, but I worked probably 10 hours a week when I was a senior, and I was busy, and I got good grades, and it forced me to discipline my time. What was I willing to pay to get what I wanted? I paid it. I paid it in the form of time on the job, and then I bought whatever I wanted with the money that I earned. I want to tell you about the day I heard the clock ticking, because at some point this is going to happen to you, and pay real close attention to the day it happens. Older people always say, it was just like yesterday. Well, it wasn't quite like yesterday. That'd be stretching the truth a bit. And you may have something like this. In fact, I guarantee you at some point you will have something like this. Pay attention when it happens. I was in a classroom. It was the end of the first semester of my senior year. I was 16. I was about to turn 17. And there was an election going on that day for high school office. That was my homeroom, and I had to vote that day in that room. And I was going to vote because I was running for the president of the student body. And it was what I thought was going to be a close race. It wasn't, as it turned out, but I thought it was. And I'd given a speech that morning, and it had been a successful speech, I thought. People laughed, and usually that's a good sign. And so I went into that room to vote, and I was going to vote for myself, of course. I wasn't a fool. And then it hit me. I had been in that same room exactly 1 year earlier. And I was also running for office. I was running for the presidency of the Student Honor Society, in other words, the Academic Society. Usually in the United States, the big one is the National Honor Society. We did not have that in California. We had one called the California Scholarship Federation, but it was the equivalent. And I was running for president of that organization. And as a matter of fact, I won that. And I realized in my mind that was like yesterday. And I really did mean it. That really was like yesterday. It was a year behind me, but it was like yesterday. That was when the clock ticked in my ear really loud. Now, as it happened, I won the election, student body president, went on to college, and so forth. But that event was crucial in my life. But I realized the clock was ticking, and if I was going to achieve anything of significance, it would tick louder and louder and faster and faster. And it did, and it has. And that's not going to change. That's one of the important moves to adulthood. And you may not have had it yet. Maybe you have, but maybe not. But it's this issue. You can look back at an event at least a year behind you, and it registers in you emotionally and psychologically that almost no time has gone by. And then you make the conclusion it's going to happen again, and it's going to happen a lot. And it was a good thing that it did, and I learned it early, and it made me a more efficient worker. I can remember the week I turned 25. And my grandmother told me this. She said, "You will be 30 before you know it." Let me assure you, I was 50 before I knew it. Now, I knew at 25 that was true, and the reason I knew that is the event that I just described. It will catch up on you. Time catches up, and don't let it sneak up on you from behind. The earlier you go through the experience that I've just described, something like that experience, the better off you are, especially if you take it seriously. Let's talk about some of the marks of adulthood. A sense of time is really important. I've already described this. You've got to have a sense of time and the ticking of the clock. You've got to have a sense of responsibility for your actions. You should have that already. But it's going to get more and more obvious that you are responsible and nobody else. And you cannot successfully say the other guy did it. It's the other guy's fault. Don't blame me, because they're going to blame you, because your level of responsibility will increase as you get older. And one of the signs of adulthood, at least a mature adulthood, is your willingness to take on more responsibility. Some people say they want to make a lot of money. Well, that's easy to say. Do you know what that really is saying? I want to load up on responsibility, because you don't get something for nothing. There are no free lunches, and that includes money. And if you win the lottery, you're responsible for the money. And by the way, I did that once. Yeah, I did. In fact, I did it once for myself, and my wife did it. Federal government had a lottery years and years ago in the late 1980s on allocating federal communications license space. In other words, the airwaves. You had to win it, and I won it, and I won a lot of money, and then my wife, about a week later, won even more. So I've won the lottery. And let me tell you, you got to know what you're going to do with the money. And I knew what to do, and we gave a lot of it away, because you don't want to become addicted to money. But there's no way in the world that you can get a pile of money and not have accompanying it a pile of responsibility. You need self-discipline, and you need a lot of it. And if you don't have self-discipline, then somebody else is going to discipline you. If it's not self-government, then it's some other form of government. And if you don't like government leaning over your shoulder, then you've got to be self-disciplined. And that's a mark of adulthood. There's got to be self-improvement. You've got to have a program in your life systematically to improve your performance. I recommend in this course that you read faster and faster every day. You take a speed reading tool and you put 10 minutes a day into that tool. And you do that every day. Preferably, you do it for the rest of your life. You push and push and push for 10 minutes to increase your speed. And if you can read 600 words a minute, or really if you can read 1,000 words a minute without struggling, with high retention, you will have an advantage over virtually all of your competitors for the rest of your life. And this is just one example. Self-improvement is crucial to adulthood. You got to be reliable. If you are not reliable, it doesn't matter how smart you are. If you cannot be trusted to do what you say you're going to do, you're in trouble. Reliability. Let's go back. You'll recognize this. It's a variant of it. Do what you say you're going to do. Second, do it when you say you will do it. And do it at the price you agreed to. It's basically the same 3 rules as before. In other words, what do you want to achieve? How soon do you want to achieve it? What are you willing to pay? This is the variant of it for business. And not just business, for everything you do with others. In relationship to other people, do what you say you will do it when you say you will do it, and do it at the price you agreed to. If you do these 3 things predictably, I guarantee you, you're going to be a success. And the reason is most people won't do it. I don't know if it's because they can't do it, but they won't do it. You can do it. You should do it. And if you gain the inner self-discipline to do it, you're going to be a success. To push you along, I have created the Ron Paul Curriculum Contract. And I want students who join the program to sign it. And if you sign it, you're committed to it. Now, there's no way anybody can force you to do it. But if you're adult in your thinking, if you do what you say you will do, if you will do it when you say you will do it, and at the price agreed to, then you should be willing to sign the contract and fulfill the terms of the contract. And this will be a tremendous advantage for you academically, because you're the best judge of your own performance. Not your parents, nobody else. You're the best judge. You may not think so, but you are, because you're responsible for you. You've got to judge how good you are. You've got to judge what you're capable of doing. Other people can give you hints. Other people can give you free advice. But you're responsible, and you're the world's #1 expert in you. There's nobody else who has the same expertise that you have regarding you. And so I want you to sign the contract. It's not mandatory, but it is highly recommended. It's a contract with yourself. It's also a contract with your parents. But it's mainly a contract with yourself because you are responsible for yourself. And it's time for you to understand this. And so I think the contract will help you do this. And you can go here to download it. It's in a PDF form. ronpaulcurriculum.com/RPC capitalized contract.pdf. Print it out. Print out one copy for yourself and sign it. And then print out the other copy for your parents and sign it. And hand that copy to your parents. This will make a difference in your performance. Now, you don't have to do it. I recommend that you do it. If you're serious about what you're doing academically, if you're serious about not wasting time and effort, you will sign the contract and you will fulfill the terms of the contract over the next academic year. And if you do it, I think you're going to be successful. If you have any other questions, go to the site, www.ronpaulcurriculum.com. I wish you the best. I wish you success. And I hope you get what I would call the addiction to success. Now, I know addiction's a hard word. But let's put it this way, that you get used to success. You get a delight from success. You get a feeling of accomplishment from success. And that in doing this, it's going to change your life. And I think the time to begin is now.